I'm Isaac with 120 Water.
And I'm Chelsea with Rogue Water, and we're excited to welcome you to the Make Water Work and Catalyst Collab.
There's two people that I can't think of that would be better to talk about and kick off this series than to have Chelsea Boozer and Greg Wukasch come in. And so welcome, Chelsea and Greg.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Isaac. We're excited.
Great to be back.
Yeah. And like I was saying, like the theme of communications, not just how we do it, but why we do it, is so important. And you two both have championed that cause so much. You've really been like kind of bearing that torch and building the community around it. So we always like to celebrate people who make water work. But you have this amazing, I'm going to say conference. It's really an experience called Catalyst, and you can correct me on that in a minute.
Yeah.
But I really want to dig into what makes Catalyst work, because it's had such a big impact on this industry and on many professionals. So Chelsea and Greg, what makes Catalyst work? And I'll make you fight to decide who goes first.
Yeah, I'll start us off and tag team Greg in here on the answer. One, I'm really glad for the opportunity to just kind of dig in. What is Catalyst and what makes it work? I think that question in and of itself is so important to what Catalyst is, because it is something that works, and there is a lot that goes into that. And we don't like to call it a conference. I know in this industry sector, conferences are what we're used to, and like that's the word we know for it. And if I say, hey, you want to come to this experience, all of a sudden people get scared. Like, what is that? We're a real risk adverse industry. How do I explain that to my boss? But the reason we like to use that word is because of something called experience design. And that's what we use to design Catalyst, because there's one thing to, sit in front in a conference room with your PowerPoint and kind of tell you different comm strategies. Like, that works. That's fine. Mm-hmm. That exists elsewhere. And so we would not have created an event to do that, because there was not a gap in that. There is a gap in really modeling what we're preaching, real strategic communications that is science-backed, research-backed, how behavioral science works. And there's a lot of research based on your environment, how you learn something, where you are when you learn it, what you're listening to, what you're smelling. Those are the details that we put into Catalyst. And I know we'll get into that a little more, but I'll just say that as a summary to start us off. And the other thing I'll add before kind of turning it over to Greg, who, by the way, is a co-design partner with Rogue on Catalyst. He's been around from the beginning, from the very first Catalyst, and really helps put the story to these and the impact behind them. But what I want to say to some of your first comments, Isaac, in your podcast series, which is talking to all kinds of people in the water sector, not just communicators, what is a common thing? Communications. Like, it keeps coming up. I'm listening in to your episodes over and over, because this is a huge need of our industry, and it's a huge piece to all the puzzles, to the engineering, operational puzzles, to the finance, trust building, affordability puzzles, to the leadership puzzles. Like, this is something our sector needs, and that's really why Catalyst was created to answer that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that, Chelsea said it perfectly. I mean, when we sit down and begin to talk about the design of any catalyst, we're going to storytell. We're going to sit down and we're going to talk about how do we model it in terms of what is being presented to those that are going to come. But even how do we model it in the design of Catalyst itself? Like, we want to be very thoughtful about how we go about doing it. We don't do anything haphazard. We really think about venue spaces. We really think about the story it's going to tell. What she just said a while ago, how are you going to feel when you leave a particular experience that you have? And so all of that is built into the actual design of Catalyst itself, with the idea that if somebody who comes to Catalyst says, well, I mean, how do you do this? Like, can I really do this in my own setting? We can say, yeah, I mean, this is purposefully put together this way. and we're going to give you a little behind the scenes look at how it's put together so that you can then go back and practically begin to do that on your own, in your own setting, whatever that may be. So it is very, very intentional in everything that we do. We spend a whole lot of time in the intentionality of each step along the way.
The only thing I'll add, and just to back up, I probably should have said, what is Catalyst more literally? Catalyst is a 3-day event where you skills build and you register to come and we meet together. So it does have that conference feel, and that like we are learning better communication. We're learning outreach. We're learning government affairs. We are doing those things over 3 days. But the words Greg and I are using are because we move venues very intentionally, and it's hands-on. That I feel like is an overused word these days. I think everyone wants to make their event interactive, and so they pop up a Mentimeter and we're interactive all of a sudden.
Yep.
That's not what we mean by interactive. But we also don't mean like we're pushing anyone to go jump on a stage with no prep and be super out of their comfort zone. Like I think where growth happens is a little bit out of your comfort zone, but we're not embarrassing anybody. No one should fear coming to Catalyst, but it's much more interactive than a Mentimeter. I'll say that.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. And I think, you know, when I reflect on one of the things that I have loved about entering the water industry when I did in 2018 was that what stuck out to me immediately was that the professionals that I interact with are placemakers. They have a deep understanding of their place, and they know, I think what you highlight is the importance of bringing that place context into what they do, and not to put that off to the sides. Like, be proud of your place, know how to communicate, know how to bring those variables together. And I remember in the podcast with you, Greg, where you talked about your background in, you know, going to theme park design school and like bringing some of those things that like place matters, experience matters, and we learn better and internalize things when we're experiencing it rather than just informationing it. If I can coin that term.
Yeah, it's true. I like to say, with really any experience design, but also with Catalyst, that it's both content and context. And I think in the water space, a lot of times in what we do in communications is we focus a lot on the content, right? We want to have all the facts and the figures and that's all important. But we all know that you can sit at any conference, you can sit in a room and see all of the facts and figures in a wonderfully put together presentation. And if it's too cold, if it's too hot, if the room is boring, it affects you. It affects the way you learn. And so I think what we're trying to model and what we're trying to do a little bit different is understanding it's both content and context. And what we do in the water space is the content and communication, but it's in the context that we do it in, the types of community, the types of people, the types of spaces, the types of tourists. Why are tourists coming to your city? All of that is part of the context. And I think we model that really well in Catalyst to help people walk away and say, and I like it when people walk away and almost say, what is it? Like, what's the secret sauce about Catalyst that I'm not seeing, that I don't get? Like, you're right. There's this thing and they're just not quite sure what it is. And I think that's the beauty of it, is to be able to say, okay, let's have a additional conversations about what that kind of secret sauce is all about and how you can go about creating that.
Yeah. And I love designing with Greg for that reason, like what he just said. You know, sometimes I'm in very like executive director mode. I have all these logistics that need to get done for Catalyst. We have our planning call. I get on the call and I'm like, I think we should bring in so-and-so to speak about such and such, and like da-da-da-da. And he's like, okay, well, back that up, because that is a template, right? And this is what we do at conferences. This is what we as utilities or anyone else in the sector do with our events. Like, I'm going to send a press release, and then I'm going to get the CEO to speak, and then I'm going to do this. But why? Why are we doing any of that? What is the purpose? What does it mean? And if we ask ourselves that, I think a lot of times we find, oh, we were just doing that because like that's how you're supposed to put on a press conference, or that's how you're supposed to put on. So Greg and I, and there are other books and learning behind this too, but we really use Priya Parker's The Art of Gathering, which talks about using purpose as your bouncer and like starting with your purpose. Why are you bringing people together, and what do you want them to take away? And then measuring every decision against that. And that's how Catalyst turns out so unique.
Yeah, it does. And I like in our conversations, Chelsea, I think one of the impactful things that you said on the podcast, that conversation that we had earlier this year or last year, was just that communication strategy is an asset just as much as a pump, a lift station. Like, that has to be treated like an asset. And so it is more than just a creative arts thing. It's a craft. There's a science. Like, there's a lot more that goes into it. And so you not only bring that to the forefront, but you're also allowing people to experience that from every angle possible within those 3 days, 3 days at Catalyst.
Yeah. And, if I can wave a magic wand across the sector, I would get people to believe what you just said, because I think we say it sometimes, or I'll say it and people nod their head along. But at the end of the day, I don't know that they value a strategic comms plan as much as they value a preliminary engineering report. They don't think it carries the same weight. But I think we've seen time and time over again, when you don't engage properly with the community, with the city council, with your commission, with the business community, with whoever stakeholder it is, that things fail in the sector, just like a pump fails. And Catalyst is a place where we slow down to really put our attendees in the boots of those that they engage with. I think, I used to work at a utility. Greg still works at a utility. I understand, what it's like to be in that seat day in and day out, and all the pressures that are coming, and how we're needing to communicate out. And now you're telling me I need to listen to people too. With what time? When am I going to do this? We purposely put our attendees in positions where they feel certain things, and then we'll reflect and say, didn't you feel like a little angry right then, or a little confused, or a little curious? That's probably how your customer feels when you don't invite their opinion, or just leave a door knocker, a door hanger on the door. And so, I think this is the stuff that makes or breaks all of our projects. Like this, how we build trust is the through line to everything. Unfortunately, people think because they can talk, they can communicate, and that's not true. There is skills behind this, and that's what we want to dig into at Catalyst and spread to everyone. Like, everyone needs the skill set.
Yeah. Now tell us about this year's location, what you're excited about for this year's Catalyst in particular.
Yeah, so it's in San Diego, California. What a better, can't get a better location than that. So if that's all that brings you out, we'll take you, and you'll leave inspired. It is September 1st through 3rd, although for the first time ever, we do have some pre-Catalyst workshops on August 31st with a couple different partners. And we're really digging in. I'll say we have the content and context theme, right? Content and creative theme. Creatively, we're kind of welcoming you into a dinner party. I know that makes no sense to the common person. I don't mean you're necessarily like sitting down to a dinner party. It is a 3-day thing. But that's kind of the storyline we'll be inviting you into. We always invite you into a new world that we design for you that only happens at Catalyst and that you can connect with your peers over. But we're content-wise digging into all the things we just talked about when it talks about building public trust, but specifically how we show up. So Rogue Water has something called the 4 pillars of public trust, and it's transparency, which is telling the truth, relationships through experiences, showing up, how we show up as anchor institutions and as the public health sector for our community, and earning advocates. So we always go through all of those in different ways, but we really want to explore how we show up in service to our communities, how we show up in different rooms with different audiences, and with the hospitality pieces to that. So Greg, with his really unique background, as you said, theme parks, but also hospitality is bringing a lot to that. And I don't know if you want to add anything to the creative side of it, Greg.
Yeah, well, it's funny. I think sometimes when we're planning and I tell Chelsea some things, she's like, my gosh, I didn't know you did all of that. And then it just kind of works into our storyline. But I also, for 14 years, was an adjunct professor in the tourism and hospitality department in the local college here. And so, so we're bringing that idea of, we talked about the idea of a servant who, maybe a little bit old school, but who, in a fine dining restaurant, they have the towel draped over their arm, right? And they're there to serve. And that metaphor, that concept idea of, we're more, we are servants. That's what we do in our communities. We are here to serve the people in our communities. And so what does that look like? What does that look like when things are going really well? What does that look like when things are not going so well, when they're failing? What does that look like when, you're being called names and you're not getting the same hospitality back? And I love what Chelsea said a while ago. And I want to just reiterate the fact that we are not afraid in a very professional, strategic way to dive into sort of those emotions and those feelings. Like, what are you feeling?
Yeah.
How does this impact you? Again, I think that's part of the secret sauce of Catalyst, that we're not just there with facts and figures. We're there to deal with the holistic side of the work that we do. So yeah, hospitality is a huge kind of passion of mine. And I'm really glad that we're diving into that this year. And we don't like to give a whole lot away. I know we sound like we're talking around it, but part of it is that we don't want to give too much away, because if we do, then we give you too much expectation. We want you to come and experience what it is and experience some of the surprises that are going to be there. But if you look at what Chelsea's been putting out in some of the advertisements and social media posts, you'll get a really good sense of where things are going and some of the icons and metaphors and things of that nature. It's going to be pretty amazing. As always, it's going to be pretty amazing.
I think that's one of the things, is that there's so much when I experienced my Catalyst for the first time last year. And it was an amazing experience. And when you look at, everything from the outside in, it's like, there's so much FOMO. It's like, it looks like you're having so much fun, but let's actually talk about, how would a water utility professional justify it like this? It is a lot of fun. And it's not just more than fun. It's the experience. I'll just come back to it, is how it's internalized. So, but let's unpack that a little bit.
Yeah.
How would you respond to that, Chelsea?
Yeah, it's a perfect segue, because I was going to ask you a question, and after I answer this, it lines up my question for you personally. As a first-time attendee last year, I think people are listening to us, and we're talking about communications and feelings and fun stuff, and they're going to have that question of like, okay, well, my work is paying for me to go. Am I going to get anything out of this? I think everything Greg just talked about, in relation to showing up when people are mad at you, this is what we're experiencing in the water sector. We're talking about very scary stuff with people, and never at another time in history have they had so much access to information, true information, misinformation, people hyping them up, people making them angry. And we all of a sudden, mostly trained as operators and engineers and finance people, are having to deal with that. And when I say deal with it, I don't even mean that negatively. I love our customers, and they are so valid in their questions and concerns and thoughts. I am also questioning and concerning and thoughtful about what I put in my body when it comes to public health. And so, we're being asked as a sector to meet the moment and have these conversations with people under really intense pressure, when we don't always have the answers, when science is continuously changing. So we're diving into that at Catalyst, and we bring in expert practitioners who do this day in and day out, who are skilled at different segments of how to do that. And I'll say the biggest question I get from CEOs, even from like top vice presidents of engineering, is how to do that piece, how to engage with people. And Catalyst is where you learn those answers. We don't only do it with water professionals. We usually bring in a mayor, and we hope to have a mayor this year. Not ready to announce it yet, but stay tuned to this little summer series. You might get to speak with them. We've had a mayor come in every year and tell us, hey, what, how can we reach you better? And we love it because, or our attendees love it because it's not their mayor. They have all these burning questions that they're scared to ask their mayor. They can ask this mayor. This mayor can tell them, like, hey, I hate when people text me at 5 p.m. or I would rather people text me at whatever time rather than like I'll miss an email. We get into those things of how to do that. So you were absolutely learning and skills building, in fact, in ways that like you don't get to anywhere else. What looks like fun on the videos is, one, a lot of fun, but two, is the actual science and strategy behind how humans learn and how humans are engaged with. And not only are you getting to experience that at Catalyst, the whole point is what Greg said earlier. We are modeling what we're teaching. Yeah. You go back and you do this too. And it doesn't mean you got to bring in a singer and an improv person. That's not the point. And we unpack all that at Catalyst. But the point is genuine engagement, and everyone can do it. And that's what you're taking away. So I was going to ask you, Isaac, as someone who, your words, have had FOMO because you've seen videos, and finally you got to your first Catalyst last year, which was amazing to have you there. What did you take away from it? Was it more than just kind of having fun for 3 days?
It was a lot more than just having fun, and I had a lot of fun. So I had a lot of fun, but I think for me, one, it was in Milwaukee, which was a great city. Milwaukee mayor, to your point, was a great, so gracious with kind of letting us peek under the hood of how his mind works and how that relationship works. But I think for me, when I think about a specific session, there was Amira had this role thing where you just walked in and you were in the middle of a crisis communications issue. You had angry constituents, you had an advocacy group, you had the mayor call, so she was walking you through and just kind of saying, hey, this information just came in. How do you respond? How do you respond? And so you got to feel the anxiety of that. And it's better to have that in that space than it is to wait to build, to say, oh, wait, I wish I had a really good relationship with my mayor right now. So it wasn't just building relationship or trust with the community. It was also saying, who else am I going to have to work with when things happen, and how do I build and how do I anticipate those? So I felt like that was really valuable. And that kind of went deep. And then, you had a Britton Smith from New York City who kind of walked people through this, how to be creative, how to open yourself up. It was a wider experience. It was really just giving us permission to be safe, play, and understand that when you're playing, you're in a safe space, you have good ideas, and that helps keep you rooted. And so there was a lot. Yeah. There was a lot there.
And Amira Palacios session you mentioned, it was really that was an example of through immersion. It's, we can think all we want all day of someone, just showing how they did a case study. But when you're having to live think through these things, feel these emotions, you learn so much better, and you can figure out practically how you take that back into the situation you are in, back in the real world. Greg and I talk a lot about, and we talk to our attendees about, you get to be in this world for 3 days and 3 days only. The world ends. And I hope you take this community with you, but we want to prepare you here how to be who you were here, to bring a piece of that person back to the real world and how you can engage this way there. So there's a lot of prep in which goes into the second piece you highlighted with Britton Smith, who is, I think, an Emmy-winning artist out of New York City, a singer, performer, is complex human dynamics. That is something, most professional organizations and conferences steer away from. What do you mean emotions? That's not professional. We bring emotions with us every single day. The people-to-people interactions are what is hard and what either drives work forward or doesn't. I took a lot away personally from Britton's session. People were leaving his session in tears because it opened up so much in them. And Catalyst is a place where everyone commits to the bit and shows up vulnerable. it is so unique to experience that. Like, it moves me every single year to be in a room with that many people who have opened up in that way. And in that particular, Greg and I call this the soul moment of Catalyst. It changes every year. It's always through a different method. The year before, we had a poet come in who, like a poet for the city of Philadelphia, that led us through some things of like how our customers feel, and like we had to put ourselves in their shoes. But yeah, where I was getting to with Britton is he really had us talk about and show with our fingers on a level of 1 to 5 how we felt about certain statements or how comfortable certain things were for us. And when you looked around that room, which had older and younger, newer to the industry, 30 years in the industry, manufacturers, CEOs, communication specialists, engineers, like all different types of people, they saw each other in that way where they were practicing vulnerability in, an easier, comfortable way by just holding up their hand. But when you unpacked with them later on at dinner or at happy hour, they felt really emotional when they saw, one of the questions was, do you feel seen in your work? Do you feel seen in your workplace? And a lot of people held up a 1. That moved people who held up a 5 to tears because they never realized that. So that's the kind of stuff we're digging into in Catalyst that, we don't think, or I've just never experienced other spaces out there that open up to that kind of stuff. So I'm glad that was one of your moments.
Yeah. Well, and I also think it's worth answering the question this way too, because, where 120 Water will be a sponsor, I think it's worth from a sponsorship standpoint. So when I'm there with my, I also have a solution that I hope to bring to market hat on. That's me with a hat on.
Yeah.
I get a lot, and I think the best organizations get a lot when they are willing to spend time listening to the community and participating. I'm not there with an answer. I'm there with a lot of curiosity, a lot of questions, and I want to understand what the biggest needs are. And to me, it's so important we know that the work that water professionals do require a lot of data to be reported up to regulators, but also a lot of information to be communicated out. And that's a complex dynamic that doesn't necessarily exist for a lot of other industries, where you're needing to balance both of those at once. And so I think that's like the missional part of me is like, I want to be at the epicenter of that, like whatever's going on. And I believe that that's at the Catalyst community it's the people who value that. And that's where the change making is going to happen.
Yeah. And I love to hear that from your perspective, both as an attendee and a sponsor, because, one thing we tell our sponsors and we hear back from both attendees and them is that Catalyst really is a community of innovators. These are the ones pushing the conversations forward, pushing the needle forward, the ones at their workplaces that are going to go back to whoever, whether they are the decision maker or there's a different team, and say, hey, I think we should think about this, or hey, this would be on the cutting edge. Like, these are the daring people that are going to do that. And unlike, a bigger event, this curated community, like, you're able to sit and build relationships, get to know people, like join them along the journey, like you said, instead of just being there to sell something to them. And yeah, people have found that so valuable. And what I like is that it also models what we teach. I said one of the 4 pillars is relationships through experience. And, whatever piece you play in the Catalyst journey, whether you're a partner in sponsorship, whether you're an attendee or a guest, whether you're a guide, which is what we call our speakers because they really guide us along the journeys, you are getting to be a piece of that story and like getting to experience the full 4 pillars of public trust. So yeah, I loved kind of hearing those pieces in your answer.
Yeah, you said some key phrases there, and I know again, not to be too cliche here, but we have said that Catalyst is really a movement, and that's a really good, I think, a really profound, larger way. I see, and this is just the way my brain works, but I I see this whole sort of Catalyst ecosystem that goes far beyond just, and the 3 days is powerful, but it goes beyond that. And sometimes I think we don't even know, and I don't think we will ever know the impact that those 3 days and then the greater ecosystem that's being developed is having upon the industry. I think once a boulder begins running downhill on certain concepts and ideas, you can't stop it. But you also can't control it. And so it just goes. And that's, again, the beauty of the movement of Catalyst is it stirs in people. It creates a Catalyst community of people that maybe have never spoken to one another. It brings new partners in that say, oh gosh, we want to be a part of this. That means the whole ecosystem that's being sort of put together. Whether we see that or not, I believe it's there. I believe it's being assembled. And it is so much fun. It after almost 30 years of being in the water space, it is one of my all-time most favorite things to be a part of, for sure. So.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's, I love what you just said, because we can get so focused on measuring the impact, and measurement is absolutely important. And we need key performance indicators, and we need to have measurements, but we also have to leave enough space to hold it loosely, to have something else happen that might be, we didn't anticipate, because those things happen anyway. Like 5 years ago, who would have predicted that data centers would be at the forefront of every community conversation? And now all of a sudden we have to have and it went from, the sentiment is swinging so wildly, or like, and any of those topics, like we actually have no idea what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But we also have no idea what's going to happen. Like, it's just not like, that's not like we have no idea what's going to happen. Like, let's be terrified. We also have no idea what's going to happen. Like that actually can be a statement with just as much hope. And I do want to let people know what is going to happen. So today is the start of a mini series on the Make Water Work podcast. And what is going to keep happening is that we're going to get to have a lot of the guests, or a lot of the guides, be guests on this, whether they're going to be a guide for the upcoming Catalyst, or been a guide in a previous Catalyst, and which a lot of those folks have already been guests on my podcast because I met them at Catalyst. So that's another impact.
I'm excited for that, though, because actually a lot of the practitioners we bring in to be expert guides at Catalyst are not always the ones you see at every conference, or not the ones speaking, everywhere. The same all. Like, we are really trying to push the sector forward, and hopefully introduce you guys to like a broader swath of experts out there. So I'm really excited too. And some of the things you hear them talk about is exactly what you just got into, Isaac. Well, hey, everyone needs KPIs. How do I measure that? What is public perception of reuse and data centers and desal? And what is, how do we poll our customers? Like, we will get into all of that. And we have experts, coming in on all those pieces too. But then also the complex human dynamics and the behavioral science behind, hey, if you message this way, humans tend to respond this way. But if you message that way, they tend to respond that way. Those are some key strategies that we need to know. So, yeah, I'm so excited that you'll be hosting all of them over the summer, and everyone will get to hear from these guys.
Yeah, me too. It's great. And I just can't thank you both enough for what you've brought and what you've created. I know that it has already gone beyond what you could have imagined, and I already am excited for how much further it's going to go. I do want to say to the listeners as well, there's still time, perhaps when you're listening to this, to sign up. So Chelsea, where do they go to find out more information about the Catalyst experience?
Yes, great question. If they go to catalysth2o.org, there'll be a Catalyst tab there. They can find out everything they need to know, how to register. We do have limited seating. So if you are hearing that, and there is time before September 1st, 2026, go ahead and get your seat locked in.
Mm-hmm. And there's opportunities for sponsorship. Again, that's already been a value to me and to 120. We're excited to sponsor this year. And if you're listening to this and you're like, well, it is September 4th and I missed it. Catalyst is a community, and it's going to happen again next year. And there's other programming beyond this, but we're really excited to shine a spotlight on the guides for this year to really let you get to see a little bit of that, and we'll make sure to not spill everything out in the all at once, and
Greg
keep some
loves
Easter
his surprises, which actually makes Catalyst so fun. And return attendees, we've kind of got like this little cult following, and they're always looking for our Easter eggs. We have Easter eggs in the design and the story every year. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I can't thank you enough, Isaac, one, for the opportunity to talk about this, but two, 120 being a partner. The partners and sponsors who sign on to Catalyst are so important, because it takes a unique, like, forward-thinking, innovative company to get behind this work and to see like the impact of this work in our sector. And they also help keep this accessible so that everyone can kind of come and reach this skills building. So thanks to 120, and so excited for all the conversations over the summer.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you all for tuning in. I say this every time. I love this Make Water Work podcast. I love the community that it gives me the opportunity to interact with. And we really hope that you take a look at Catalyst and take a look at where you can have an impact and where you can grow your skill set in this industry. And we'll talk to you next time. Thanks for listening to the Make Water Work podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss a conversation. We'd love to hear your thoughts and questions. Connect with us on LinkedIn or send us a message. Together, we can make water work for everyone.